Beneath the vast, endless waves of the great Nyanza, where the light of the sun melted into shimmering gold, a secret world thrived. Here, in the depths untouched by mortal hands, lay the kingdom of Umwambazi, the realm of the mermaids. It was a place of breathtaking beauty, where coral palaces glowed with bioluminescent light and schools of fish swirled in patterns like the embroidery of a goddess. The water pulsed with ancient magic, whispering the songs of forgotten times. Among the mermaids who ruled these depths, one stood apart. Her name was Nshira, a creature of celestial grace, her ebony tail reflecting the deep blues and purples of the ocean's heart. Unlike her sisters, who reveled in their eternal existence beneath the waves, Nshira was restless. She longed for something beyond the sea's embrace, something she could not name. But there was one thing that made her different from all others. Her tears were not ordinary. When Nshira cried, her tears solidified into pearls that radiated a light brighter than the moon. These pearls were more than mere jewels, they held the power of immense wealth. Whoever possessed them found their lands fertile, their granaries full, and their purses overflowing with gold. But this gift was a curse, for word of such power had reached the ears of mortals long ago. Hunters, greedy kings, and desperate men had once sought mermaids, hoping to steal their tears. Many had perished in their attempts, lured to their deaths by the sea's unforgiving wrath. Yet, the stories of mermaids' wealth never faded. Like an ember beneath dry leaves, greed smoldered in the hearts of men waiting to be ignited. Nshira had witnessed the destruction that human desire brought. She had seen the bodies of mermaids captured and drained of their tears, left as lifeless husks on the shores. She had heard the Queen Mother's warnings. The world of men is treacherous, my child. They will worship you today and betray you tomorrow. You do not belong among them. But Nshira was not afraid. She did not want to be hunted or worshipped. She wanted to be loved. She had watched the fishermen who came to the shore, the way they laughed, the way they held their wives in tender embraces. She had heard the songs of lovers whispered under the moonlight. She did not just want to witness love, she wanted to feel it. And so, she made her decision. One night, when the moon was full and the ocean was calm, Nshira swam to the sacred shrine of the Queen Mother of the Deep. The shrine was an ancient place where only the bravest mermaids dared to go, for the Queen Mother was a being of immense power. She was not just the ruler of the mermaids, she was the spirit of the ocean itself, a force as old as time. Nshira knelt before the shrine, her voice trembling as she spoke. Great Mother of the waters, I beg of you, grant me the legs of a human. Let me walk among them, let me know the warmth of their world, let me love as they do. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then, the waters around her began to stir. A deep voice, ancient and powerful, echoed through the depths. You do not understand the price of what you ask, child. But Nshira was resolute. She would trade the endless beauty of the sea for the unknown path of the land. She would face whatever came, even if it meant pain. And so, the Queen Mother made her choice. The ocean roared. The waters spun in a powerful vortex, dragging Nshira into a current stronger than anything she had ever known. Darkness swallowed her as the magic took hold. When she opened her eyes again, she was no longer in the sea. She was human. And her journey had only just begun. The first thing Nshira felt was cold. It crept into her bones, different from the cool embrace of the ocean. The wind brushed against her bare skin, unfamiliar and sharp. She opened her eyes, finding herself lying on the damp earth near a riverbank. The sky above stretched endlessly, a deep blue canvas untouched by the shimmering waves she once knew. She tried to move, but her body felt different, lighter yet fragile. She looked down and gasped. Her tail was gone. In its place were two legs, slender and trembling as she shifted. Her feet pressed against the earth, unfamiliar with its roughness. Her hands, now smaller and softer, curled into fists. She was human. The Queen Mother had granted her wish. But now, alone on the riverbank, a terrifying realization gripped her. She knew nothing of this world. A rustling in the bushes made her heart pound. She turned sharply, her new body unsteady. From the trees emerged an old woman, her back bent with age, her eyes sharp like a hawk's. She wore a faded wrapper, her head wrapped in a galley that had seen many seasons. The woman's gaze swept over Nshira's naked form, but she showed no surprise. Instead, she let out a knowing sigh and muttered, "The river spirits have sent another one." Nshira opened her mouth to speak, but her tongue felt strange in her mouth. Her voice, once a melody beneath the waves, came out as a weak whisper. The old woman, who introduced herself as Umwambazi, did not ask where Nshira had come from. She simply wrapped a cloth around her and led her away from the riverbank. Umwambazi took Nshira to her small hut at the edge of a nearby village. It was a humble place, the walls made of mud and straw, the scent of burning firewood drifting through the air. "You must not tell anyone where you came from," Umwambazi warned as she handed Nshira a bowl of warm porridge. "The people of this land, they are not kind to things they do not understand." Nshira ate in silence, her thoughts swirling like the tides. She had gotten what she wished for, legs to walk the earth. But now, she was a stranger in a world that knew nothing of her. Days passed, and she learned little by little. She learned to wear the wrappers the women wore, though the fabric felt heavy against her skin. She learned to grind millet, to fetch water, and to keep her head low when passing the village men. But what she could not learn, what she could not control, were her tears. One evening, as she sat outside watching the children play, the memory of her home in the ocean overwhelmed her. The ache of longing was too strong. A single tear slid down her cheek and fell into the dust. A golden pearl blossomed where it touched the ground. Nshira gasped. She had thought, now that she was human, her gift would be gone. But no. The gods had not taken it away. Her tears still carried wealth. She quickly covered the pearl with dirt, glancing around to see if anyone had noticed. But in the shadows, a pair of eyes watched. The next morning, her man came knocking at Umwambazi's hut. He was tall, with a wiry build and piercing eyes that held the sharpness of a hunter. His name was Akong, a struggling fisherman known for his cunning ways. "I have heard of a strange girl living in your home, Umwambazi," he said with a sly smile. "A girl who cries pearls." Umwambazi's face darkened. "You have heard wrong," she snapped. But Akong was not convinced. He stepped past her, his gaze locking onto Nshira. She felt a chill creep up her spine. "That girl is not ordinary," he murmured to himself. And from that moment, Nshira's peaceful days were numbered. For Akong had seen something far more valuable than a mere girl. He had seen a river of gold waiting to be shed. And he would do anything to make it his. Nshira could feel it, the shift in the air. Ever since Akong's visit, the village no longer felt the same. She saw the way people whispered when she passed, the way their eyes lingered on her for too long. Umwambazi had noticed it too, sighing heavily as she stopped the fire one evening. "These people," she muttered, shaking her head, "they do not know how to mind their own business. Be careful, child. Trouble comes when men begin to see gold where there should be flesh." But the warning came too late. That night, Nshira sat outside the hut, staring at the sky. The stars were different from the ones she knew beneath the ocean. They did not shimmer with the same knowing glow. Everything in the human world felt distant, like an illusion she could never fully touch. And then, the air grew thick. The wind stilled. The world around her seemed to hold its breath. A voice, deep, ancient, and commanding, rose from the earth beneath her. "Nshira." She froze. She knew that voice. It was the Queen Mother of the Deep. The ground before her darkened as a shape rose from the soil. It was no longer just earth, it rippled like water, forming the shape of a woman. But this was no ordinary woman. Her hair was woven with strands of silver fish, her skin gleamed like polished shells, and her eyes held the weight of centuries. The Queen Mother had crossed into the human world. Nshira, she said again, her voice a song carried by the tide. You have made your choice, but do not think the gods have forgotten you. Nshira's heart pounded. She bowed her head, overwhelmed by the presence of the one she once served. Great Mother, she whispered. Why have you come? The Queen Mother's gaze darkened. I come because I see danger. The man who watched you, he is not the first, nor will he be the last. Your gift is a blessing, but to these people, it is a curse wrapped in gold. Nshira swallowed hard. She had seen the greed in Akong's eyes, but she had convinced herself she was safe with Umwambazi. Now, hearing it from the Queen Mother herself, fear curled around her like a snake. You were meant to walk among them and experience love, the Queen Mother continued. But do not be deceived, child. Not all who smile at you wish you well. She stepped closer, her form shifting like waves upon the sand. Mark my words, Nshira. The man who seeks you now will bring you great suffering. He will hurt you, and he will not stop until he has taken all that you are. Leave this place before it is too late. Nshira's breath caught in her throat. But where will I go? She asked. I do not know this land. I have no one. The Queen Mother's expression softened, but only slightly. You must learn, as all humans do. Find those who will love you for who you are, not for what you can give them. Then, as quickly as she had appeared, the Queen Mother began to fade. Her voice echoed one last time. If you stay, you will suffer. Remember my warning. And then she was gone. The night air was silent once more. For a long time, Nshira sat still, her mind racing. She knew the Queen Mother did not give warnings without reason. And yet, she hesitated. Where would she go? How would she survive alone in this strange world? Her answer came sooner than she expected. The next morning, Akong returned. This time, he did not come alone. He brought with him a basket of fresh fish and a charm wrapped in red cloth. He knelt before Umwambazi, grinning. I have come to ask for the girl's hand in marriage, he announced. Nshira stiffened. Umwambazi narrowed her eyes. You waste your breath, Akong. She is not yours to claim. Akong laughed, but there was no joy in it. He placed the charm on the ground. I have visited the priest of the hills. He says this girl is special. That she was sent to bring fortune. I only seek to protect her and give her a home. Umwambazi scoffed. A home? Or a prison? Akong's smile thinned. She will be better off with me than wandering the streets like a beggar. Unless you would rather her beauty be taken by men who mean her harm. Umwambazi's hands curled into fists. She knew what Akong was doing. In their village, an unmarried woman with no family was seen as vulnerable. If Nshira stayed much longer, people would begin to talk. Nshira, who had been silent all this while, finally spoke. I will decide for myself. Akong turned to her, his expression smug. Then decide, my dear. She knew what he wanted. She knew the Queen Mother had warned her. But she also knew that if she rejected him, she might never find safety in this village again. And so, against the whisper of her own heart, she made her choice. I will marry him, she said. Umwambazi inhaled sharply. Child. It is my choice, Nshira interrupted, though her voice wavered. Akong's smile returned, wider than before. And just like that, the trap was set. What Nshira did not know was that by agreeing to be Akong's wife, she had not gained a home. She had walked willingly into a cage. And soon, she would pay the price. Nshira had expected many things when she agreed to marry Akong, perhaps hardship, perhaps loneliness. But what she did not expect was the suffocating weight of her own regret. The marriage was swift. There were no grand celebrations, no songs or dancing. Only a few elders gathered to bless the union with kola nuts and palm wine. Umwambazi's face was dark with sorrow, but she said nothing. Nshira could not meet her eyes. By nightfall, she was in Akong's hut. It was larger than Umwambazi's, but it felt cold. The walls were bare, the air heavy with the scent of damp wood and fish. Akong had provided her with new wrappers, beads for her hair, and a mat of fine woven raffia. But what use was beauty in a prison? At first, Akong acted as if he truly cared for her. He brought her food, spoke to her in gentle tones, and called her my golden wife. But his true nature did not take long to show. It started subtly. He would watch her closely, his eyes never leaving her face, as if waiting for something. He would test her, speaking harshly just to see if she would cry. When she refused to shed tears, his patience began to crack. Then, one evening, he grabbed her wrist with a grip so tight it made her gasp. "Do you think I do not know what you are?" he whispered. His breath smelled of palm wine, his voice thick with hunger. "I have seen the pearls, Nshira. I know what you hide." She tried to pull away, but he held her firm. "Why do you fight it?" he asked, his smile sharp like a knife. "Your tears are a blessing, my dear. A gift. Why do you keep them from me?" Nshira's heart pounded. She had feared this moment. She had known it would come. "I do not control my tears," she said softly, forcing herself to remain calm. "They are not something I can give at will." Akong's grip tightened. "Then perhaps," he murmured, his eyes darkening, "I should find ways to make you cry." A cold wave of terror washed over her. That night, the suffering began. At first, it was only words. Cruel, cutting words. Akong would insult her, belittle her, tell her she was useless if she could not bring him wealth. Then came the isolation. She was no longer allowed to speak to the other women in the village. Akong kept her locked within the hut, away from prying eyes. She was his secret, his treasure, and he would not share her with the world. Then came the pain. It started small, a shove, a grip too tight, a slap when she refused to answer his questions. But soon, it became worse. One evening, after yet another failed attempt to make her weep, Akong struck her across the face. The force of it sent her stumbling, her body crashing against the wooden walls of the hut. She felt the sting of it, the heat rising in her skin. Tears burned behind her eyes, but she refused to cry. Akong stood over her, breathing heavily, waiting. But no pulse came. Nshira looked up at him, her face bruised but her eyes defiant. "You will never have my tears," she whispered. Something in Akong snapped. "You think you can defy me," he spat. "You are nothing without me." Nothing. Nshira knew in that moment, if she stayed, she would not survive. The Queen Mother had warned her. And she had not listened. That night, after Akong had fallen into a drunken sleep, Nshira sat curled in a corner, her body aching. She had to escape. But how? Where could she go? Then, in the stillness of the night, she heard it, a whisper. "Child of the sea, you do not belong here." Her breath caught. The shadows in the hut shifted, and from them, a shape emerged, a figure cloaked in darkness, its form flickering like candlelight. Nshira's heart pounded. "Who are you?" she whispered. The figure's voice was soft but commanding. "A friend. One who sees your suffering. If you wish to escape, come to the great baobab tree at the edge of the village. But come before the sun rises, or your chance will be lost." Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the figure was gone. Nshira sat frozen, her mind racing. Was it a trick? A trap? Or had the gods finally shown her mercy? She had no choice. As the first whispers of dawn touched the horizon, she ran. She did not look back. She did not stop. She had chosen love, and it had brought her suffering. Now, she would choose freedom. Nshira ran. Barefoot, heart pounding, she fled into the night, the village huts shrinking behind her. The earth beneath her feet was cold, the wind sharp against her bruised skin. Every breath she took was a gasp of both pain and hope. She did not know if the shadowy figure had spoken the truth. She did not know if freedom truly awaited her at the great baobab tree. But she knew what awaited her if she stayed. And she refused to shed another tear for Akong. The village was still asleep, but Nshira knew the danger had not passed. There were eyes in the dark, spirits that lived in the trees, the whispering ancestors that watched the living with quiet judgment. As she reached the outer edges of the village, she heard movement. A low growl. A rustle in the leaves. Her breath hitched. Was something following her? She picked up her pace, the tall grasses whipping against her skin. The baobab tree was close. Its towering silhouette loomed ahead, ancient and wise, its roots tangled like the fingers of forgotten gods. Then, a sound behind her. A twig snapped. Footsteps. Nshira spun around, her chest heaving. At first, she saw nothing. Just the endless stretch of darkness. But then, a shape moved. A figure, tall and lean, stepped out from the shadows of the trees. His eyes gleamed like embers in the moonlight, his face hidden beneath the hood of a dark cloak. He was the same figure who had spoken to her in the hut. You came. His voice was quiet, yet powerful. Who are you? Nshira demanded, her body tense. Why did you help me? The man stepped forward, and as he did, the air around him seemed to shift, as though he was not entirely of this world. Because your suffering has been seen by those who walk between realms. Nshira swallowed hard. Are you a spirit? The man chuckled softly. Some call me that. Others call me a trickster. But you may call me Obadil. Nshira had heard of the name before. Obadil, the Wanderer. The man who was neither fully human nor fully spirit. Some claimed he was once a prince cast by the gods. Others said he had shrieked death itself and now roamed the land in search of lost souls. Could she trust him? I do not understand, she said wearily. Why would a trickster help me? Obadil smiled, his teeth flashing white in the darkness. Because I do not like greedy men. And your husband, dear Nshira, is the greediest of them all. At the mention of Akong, a cold anger settled in her chest. He will come after me. Obadil nodded. He already is. Nshira's breath caught. What? Did you think he would let his golden wife slip away so easily? Obadil's voice was calm, but his eyes burned with warning. Even now, as we speak, he is waking the hunters. By dawn, they will be searching for you. A wave of fear crashed over her. She had escaped the cage, but the hunter was close behind. She was not free yet. Back in the village, Akong's rage had ignited like wildfire. He stormed into Umwambazi's hut, his fury blinding. Where is she? He bellowed, his voice shaking the wooden walls. Umwambazi sat by the fire, her hands steady as she stirred a pot of porridge. She did not flinch, did not look up. She is gone, she said simply. Akong's hands curled into fists. You helped her, didn't you? Umwambazi finally looked at him, her old eyes sharp as a blade. I help those who deserve it. His lips twisted into a snarl. You think she will survive out there? She is nothing without me. Umwambazi only smiled. That girl was never yours to own, Akong. Rage surged through his veins. She had taken his fortune away. He turned sharply to the men standing behind him, hunters, warriors, men who would do anything for a bag of cowries. "Find her," he ordered. "And when you do." He paused, his jaw tightening. She had refused to cry for him. He would make sure she had no choice when he found her. The hunters nodded and vanished into the night. The chase had begun.